Excuse me?
What?
Your shoelace is untied. Melvin.
You're watching Pat Plays. It's time for another episode of Coffee and Nostalgia, and today I want to talk about Bill and Ted because they have finally released a full-length trailer for their upcoming movie, Bill and Ted Face the Music.
If it isn't the Wild Stallions. Let's rock!
Finally making this franchise into a trilogy. And obviously, as a massive fan of the Bill and Ted films, I cannot wait for this to come out, and I've got everything crossed in hopes that I can actually go to the cinema to be able to watch this, making it my first ever Bill and Ted film that I've seen at the cinema. So the trailer looks fantastic. It's really got me hyped up for the film, more so than I already was. It still has the low budget quality and charm of the original two films, but still looking good enough to go up against the summer blockbusters which it could have been going up against. When it was first announced that they were actually making this film, I didn't really have high hopes for it, and I thought that it could suffer the same fate as the Dumb and Dumber sequel that they made, which was like a 20-year later reunion, which is the same as what they're doing for Bill and Ted. But what this film has going for it is that they've obviously brought back Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter to portray the roles, and rather than doing a reboot and just recasting everybody, they've stuck to the guns and made it an actual sequel. They've also got the original writers of the first two Bill and Ted films, and those are the guys that created the characters, so you know that they're going to want to do them justice in this third film. And they've even brought back arguably one of the best characters out of both of the original films, and that's Death from Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, played by William Sadler.
We're gonna go talk to Death.
Is he playing hopscotch by himself? Dude, he's cheating.
Hey, Death! If it isn't the Wild Stallions. Let's rock!
My impression from the trailers that we've seen so far is that the film is going to take on two separate storylines. We're going to see Bill and Ted going on their own excellent adventure through time, traveling to different alternate futures to try and steal their world-saving song from one of their future selves. And then on the other side of things, we're going to have a separate storyline where the two daughters of Bill and Ted are going to be going on their own adventure through time, trying to put together a band with all these great historical musicians. And then at the end of the film, they're probably all going to come together, but it will inevitably be the daughters that actually perform the song which saves the world. But that's just my theories from what I've gathered from what I've seen in the trailers and teasers so far. Anyway, it looks great, and I hope that I get to see it in the cinema. But for now, I want to talk about my favourite of the previous two films, which was the sequel, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. This is one of my absolute favourite films ever, but it could have potentially been even more of a favourite if they'd have kept in the original ending and all the deleted scenes, which have unfortunately been lost to time. So I want to take you through these lost deleted scenes, but before we can do that, let's do a quick run through of the story of the theatrical release of Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. So the basic premise of the film is this. It starts off in the future where we see these two robot versions of Bill and Ted.
Now, what is your mission?
First, we totally kill Bill and Ted. Yeah. Then we take over their lives. Then we utterly destroy them. Then at the Battle of the Bands, we give the speech they were gonna give, except totally different.
These robot versions succeed in killing Bill and Ted, who then end up going to hell.
You will come with me.
And then the devil sends them both into their own personal hells, where they have to choose where they're going to spend their eternity. So first, the boys are together in this military camp setting, and they're faced with their fear of Colonel Oates.
It's Colonel Oates! No way! Gentlemen!
Welcome to hell.
And they're forced to stay there and do infinity push-ups. But they manage to escape and split up, and this leads Bill into going into one of his personal fears, which was kissing his grandma when he was a kid.
How about a kiss for your dear old granny, Bill?
A cool thing about that scene is that Alex Winter, who plays Bill S. Preston Esquire, is actually playing Granny Esquire there and just completely covered in makeup. And then we see that Ted is locked in his personal hell with his fear of the Easter Bunny because he stole his little brother's Easter basket when he was younger.
You made your little brother cry!
So in order to escape these personal hells, Bill and Ted beat the Grim Reaper at a game of Twister, and with him under their command, they use him to take them to heaven to find the world's greatest scientist, which is a pair of aliens called Station. And they use these alien scientists to build good robot versions of themselves to fight the evil robot versions of themselves at the Battle of the Bands. And so the good robot versions win the fight, and Bill and Ted are able to perform on the stage and give the speech that they were always destined to give.
And all we can say is... Let's rock!
And that is the story of Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. And what I want to talk about now is how the film could have ended completely differently if they'd have kept the original ending that they shot, and which was shown to the test audiences, who for some reason decided that it should be left out of the movie. And rather than keeping all this footage that they filmed, they literally just got rid of it, and it has never ever been found since. The only thing that's left remaining is a few set photos and behind the scenes shots from while they were filming these scenes, and some of these photos were released on trading cards. So let's go through these deleted scenes. First up is the scene where the evil robot Bill and Ted go to Missy's house in order to take the two princesses as hostages. In the theatrical release, this is what happens.
Who are you two?
Well, you see...
Oh my god!
But in the original deleted scene, rather than explaining that they're both robots, they just use this as a joke, and they both reach up and reveal a zipper at the top of their heads, and then they begin to zip down their skin, and then they reveal to the princesses that this whole time, evil robot Ted has actually been evil robot Bill, and evil robot Bill has been evil robot Ted, which I think would have been absolutely brilliant to keep in, because it doesn't explain anything about them being robots. It's like, hey, what's up with you guys? Oh, well, you see, I'm actually evil Bill, and I'm actually evil Ted. So that is the first deleted scene that has been forever lost, and there is no footage remaining of that scene. But in the theatrical release of the film, during that scene, after the unzipping of the skin would have happened, if you look in the background of the shots, you can actually see Bill and Ted's clothing on the floor, showing where they would have unzipped the skin and just left it on the floor. So that just proves that that scene was originally going to be in there. So the next deleted segment was actually a continuation of that scene, where after they've spoken to their leader, Denomalos, and he tells them to proceed with the plan, they originally opened up their robot insides and pulled out these 3 canisters, and then they left these canisters on the floor, and then it had cut away. But none of this, of course, was ever shown. But it's funny because in the theatrical cut, when the 2 evil robots reveal that they're robots, rather than just showing the inside of their metal bodies like they did in this shot previously in the film.
Ow! You're metal, dude! I know. Check it out! Whoa! Whoa!
Instead, it shows their insides opening up. So I think the reason that they have that shot is because the insides were opening up, and then they were gonna put their hands in and pull these canisters out. So that's like another little snippet that they've left in for you. But anyway, from then on, the film would continue as normal, and we'd see Station inside the back of Bill and Ted's van, with the help of the Grim Reaper, building these good robot versions of Bill and Ted. And in the theatrical cut of the film, they just arrive safely to the Battle of the Bands, and everybody hops out and they're off on their merry way to go and fight the final battle. But in the original deleted scene version, it was going to be revealed that these 3 canisters that the robot Bill and Ted pulled out of their bodies actually contained exaggerated versions of the fears which they faced inside their own personal hells. So the van was going to come screeching to a halt, and in the middle of the road was going to be standing Colonel Oates, Bill's grandma, and a huge scary version of the Easter Bunny. And then a crazy chase scene was going to ensue where these 3 different exaggerated fears were trying to rip their way into the van, and then in order to get rid of them, Bill and Ted had to face their fears. So he was going to finally kiss Granny S. Preston Esquire, and then she disappears. Ted gets on the phone to his brother and apologizes for stealing his Easter basket all those years ago, and then the Easter Bunny disappears. And then finally they stop the van and let Colonel Oates come into the back, and they offer him coffee, fudge and donuts, and they let him talk about his feelings and how he's always been a real softie at heart, and then he disappears. But again, all of that was completely cut from the theatrical release of the film, and the footage has never ever seen the light of day and has most likely been completely scrapped. So from that scene onwards, the film was pretty much going to follow the same route that the theatrical release takes, apart from the speech which Bill and Ted give, which is broadcast all over the world before playing their final song. And because of the themes that have been brought up of these personal fears, the original speech was going to be about facing your fears. And during the Reaper rap, which is played during the credits in the theatrical release, which is basically a load of audio segments taken from the film and then put over some rock music. And in this song you can hear some original quotes taken from the audio of that original speech. So because Bill kissed his grandma finally, he says, "Kiss your fears, dudes."
Kiss your fears, dudes.
And because they both offered Colonel Oates some cake and coffee, they say,
I'm from a honey bun or something? Look at slow and maybe we can go away.
and like I say, after they faced the fears, they just like shrunk down and disappeared, and that's why Ted says they'll get smaller and maybe they'll even go away. And right at the end of the credits, at the end of this song, you can also hear the audio of Colonel Oates crying, which doesn't happen at any time during the theatrical release of the film. So I'm thinking this is from the scene where he's in the back of the van, drinking coffee and eating cakes with them and just like pouring his heart out.
Catch you later, Bill and Ted!
So that is how the last quarter of the film could have gone down originally, if the test audiences would have just given it a thumbs up. And unfortunately, the closest we'll ever get to seeing the original cut of the film is actually in the graphic novel adaptation, which was made in 1991 and was set to coincide with the release of the film. And so in order to make this graphic novel adaptation, Evan Dorkin, the guy that made it, was given the original script of the film, which back then was simply called Bill and Ted Go to Hell. And so the script which he got had all of the deleted scenes still inside the script. And because he was on such a tight deadline, he simply could only work with that original script. And when they went back in and changed the film, he didn't have time to do that to his graphic novel adaptation. And so those deleted scenes have all been drawn and inked and written into this graphic novel. So there's the scene with evil robot Bill and Ted unzipping each other's skin and revealing that they've actually been one another this whole time. And then there they are continuing the evil plan and taking the 3 cylinders out of their bodies, and then these get revealed in the headlights of the van to be those 3 exaggerated versions of the fears: Colonel Oates, Granny S. Preston Esquire, and the evil Easter Bunny. And then you've got that whole chase scene in the comic version here, and in order to get rid of them, there you've got Bill kissing his fears, Ted on the phone and apologising to his little brother for stealing his Easter basket, and finally there's that deleted scene of them all in the back of the van eating donuts and drinking coffee with Colonel Oates. So yeah, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey is one of my favourite films ever, and it's such a wild and wacky adventure, but the thought that it could have been even more insane with these exaggerated versions of the fears and having this crazy chase scene at the end of the film would have made it so much better for me. I obviously love the film as it is, but every time it gets up to that part where they're in the van and they're building the good robot Bill and Ted, it always kills me knowing that right then this chase scene was going to happen, and just add that extra bit of intense action to the film and make it even darker than it already was compared to the first one. And so if they were even just to hint, just the tiniest little hint towards these 3 fears coming back in Bill and Ted Face the Music, that would honestly be a dream come true for me, because it is genuinely heartbreaking that I will never ever see the footage that they filmed which could have been in the original Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. So just before we end this video there, let's look at the times that I've referenced the Bill and Ted films in some of my previous work. At the end of Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, they come up with this time-traveling scheme in order to win the final battle.
This, we don't got any time. Yeah, we do, dude. Look, after we get away from this guy, we use the booth. We time travel back to before the concert and set up the things we need to get him now.
And I obviously robbed this and put it in my final battle scene from the Worms: The Fight for the Future comic book adaptation. And the plan is, after we beat this guy, we use the time machine. We go back in time to before this fight and set up the things we need to kill him now. And then in the ending scene of the film Scream Again 3, which was shot in 2007 and 2009 and released in 2009, the character Hugh Jass basically copies Bill and Ted's final speech word for word.
So, what are you gonna do now?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess since I have the power to go back in time, I might as well hop on my time bike and see where it leads me.
We've been to the past.
Maybe go to the past.
We've been to the future.
Maybe even go to the future.
We've been all around the afterlife.
I could go all around the afterlife. And after a long and amazing adventure, I'll probably realize that
The best place to be is here.
the best place to be is here.
The best time to be is now.
And the best time to be is now.
And there's definitely no denying that the Crypt Keeper from the Horror Week series
Today's episode is based on the Halloween series, starring Michael Myers. No, I don't mean the guy from Austin Powers or the Love Guru. Not Mike Myers, but Michael Myers. Oh, Mike Myers, he's in the Cat in the Hat. I love that movie.
was heavily influenced by the Grim Reaper Death from Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
You might be a king or a little street sweeper, but sooner or later you dance with the Reaper. Get down with your bed, sir.
So there you have it. I hope that was a bit more of an informative video this time. I hope you learned something that you didn't already know about Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey and all those deleted scenes. This has been another episode of Coffee and Nostalgia. Thank you yet again for watching. Be excellent to each other and...
Party on, dudes!